Peter, we heard from some moms right in your neighborhood. What do you think about their analysis of why the numbers are down?
Well, I think, one, we all want to be advocates for our kids, regardless of whether it's football or any activity. That being said, I think the numbers, there's a number of things which go into it. Our school enrollment in Eden Prairie happens to also be down over that same period of time.
32%?
Certainly more, not 32%, but it's about 10%. So that brings that number down. Same thing, kids are specializing in sports earlier. I have a nephew who used to play baseball, football, soccer, and he decided to start concentrating in soccer. So we have kids focusing more in that regard. There are more sports offered as well, and across the board, whether we're talking baseball, football, basketball, etc., the numbers of youth enrollment in sports is down. So the effective number, our numbers down? Absolutely. Are they down by a third? Or, I think that might not be as accurate a number to reflect any changes when it comes to our children's safety.
As we said, also possibly a 3% increase. Maria, insofar as the issue, as you heard articulated by these mothers, they see it, at least in the scope of that interview, as one of safety. What do they need to hear?
Well, moms want transparency and they want honesty and they want to know what is being done to keep their child safe. But the issue is safety, but it goes beyond that. The NFL needs to communicate with the mom market in a way that moms can understand. And
where have they been falling short?
Well, it's not only the message of safety, but, if you have a mom who has 3 hours after school to transport 4 children to 5 different enrichment activities, it's not only the safety of them, but what are they going to get out of that enrichment? So, we've been really focused on safety, but it's also, the character building and everything else that goes along with the decision of, does my child play football, or does the NFL communicate stories like Derek Coleman and Richard Sherman and show the character building too? So there's got to be a balance between the benefit and the growth and the safety issue. And then moms will make a decision based on all that information.
But you talk about transparency, Maria. Certainly one of the criticisms over the last 20, 25 years, not so much in the last 5 years or so, has been that the National Football League was suppressing some forms of science, was promoting some bad science, had an unqualified individual at the head of the concussion committee back in the 1990s. Given that allegation, which was at the heart of the concussion suit against the league, doesn't that play to the transparency as well?
It does, but quite honestly, this is like the first time that the NFL's ever spoken to moms about anything. Their idea of marketing to women is to put out a pink Packer jersey, and to run an ad in Marie Claire. So I think that just opening the channels of communication is the first step, and then having that dialogue and inviting moms. That's great that they had 12 mom bloggers go to New York, but the conversation needs to be much broader than that.
Patrick, is this a conversational issue? Is this a medical issue? Is this a marketing issue? What is this?
I mean, from what I see, I think the NFL is treating it primarily as a marketing issue. I mean, the people that are actually in charge of their youth football safety initiatives are marketing people. If you go back and look at the sort of mid-2000s, the NFL and the Players Association at one point were spending tens of millions of dollars a year on marketing the game to young children. If you go back even farther to the 90s, Paul Tagliabue brought in MTV executives to market the game to kids, and they explicitly said, look, we want to get a football in their hands as young as possible before they get a basketball, hockey stick, something else in their hands. And so obviously they're not stupid. They realize that getting kids into football is good for their bottom line going forward because those kids become adults with disposable income. But when you look at the actual messages that the NFL has been sending to mothers, I don't know if they are giving complete or accurate information. I think that they are sort of downplaying. They're downplaying the risks of the game. I mean, one of the big initiatives they have through USA Football, their youth arm, is Heads Up, which is something that your network has done some really good reporting on.
In fact, Peter is a certified Heads Up coach.
That's right. Well, the thing about Heads Up, you hear the NFL say, look, we don't have enough data to really link brain damage to football. But you turn around, there's no data to support the idea that heads up makes the game safer.
Peter, your reaction?
Well, what I would say, the message of heads up is a message of education, of changing the culture of the game. Gone are the days of the coaches I had who are, walk it off. That's not going to be the case anymore. The mantra is, when in doubt, pull them out. So that child, as somebody mentioned earlier in the piece, who got put back into play after suffering an injury, that's not the case anymore. So through USA Football, sure, there's discussion about equipment fitting and tackling and whatnot, but it's also education. It's education of the coaches who are on the sidelines to be able to identify the signs and symptoms and pull the child out when it's appropriate. It's education of the parents, empowering them to, as well, understand the signs and symptoms and what's the protocol should your child get injured, as well, when is it appropriate for that child to return to play, and even to go one step further, empowering the kids. I can promise you, when I was playing youth football, if I had walked up to my coach and said, boy, coach, I don't feel good, I can't necessarily repeat what he would have said to me on the sidelines. I would have gotten back in the game.
Peter, professionals don't
playing.
even say that, though, and that's half the problem with reporting concussions. So teaching kids to say that is even that much more difficult.
Well, it's, it's the culture is changing. So is it going to happen overnight? No, absolutely. But this is a start, and I feel we're going in the right direction.
Maria, how much power do the moms have in this? Because this has been posited by some as an existential issue for the National Football League. It's the pipeline issue. How much power do the moms have here?
Moms control upwards of 90% of the decision making. Their spouses and partners might not like to admit it, but they control the buying power in the household. And if it's going to be writing a check to Pop Warner, if it's going to be buying the equipment, if it's going to be spending her time in the minivan driving to practices, she controls, 99% of that. So they are the decision makers. And I do think that, moms are practical people too. I've been in the back of an ambulance with my son after he was hit and had to be taken to the hospital on a football field. Both of my sons are involved in collegiate football teams. And, I think what happens is you just have to educate the moms on what the safety issues are, what's being done to help them, and then they will make the decisions that are best for their family. And, when you see your child and you see the passion in their eyes, you're going to weigh the pros and cons.
It's interesting you talk about educating the moms. Now, Patrick, I know you're familiar with the Esquire television program Friday Night Tykes, and I know you're familiar with the fact that just last week, 2 coaches were suspended from that San Antonio area league, one based on the way he was instructing his kids to hit. 3 weeks prior to that footage was out. In fact, we showed it on this program. We talked with the president of the league. And we talked with a mom from the league. This was not secret behavior, yet it took only the publicity for moms and dads and the officials in that league to take action.
Well, I think it's good that, if you have a coach that's out there encouraging really bad behavior, it's good that they're suspended. But the thing about football is that getting hit in the head in football is not an accident. It's baked into the game. That's why they're wearing helmets in the first place. And, having certain kind of tackling techniques and whatnot, those only go so far. It's an inherently dangerous game. And the real question is it too dangerous for kids of a certain age, of all ages? And, people have said you need good information to answer that. We do need good information. We need unbiased information. I'm not sure that you're going to get either one of those things from the NFL when they have a tremendous financial interest in preserving the sport, and they have a track record of obscuring the danger.
Peter, just a final word from you. We've heard all these age questions. You're a heads-up coach. You're speaking to a lot of moms, I would assume, right now. You're Dr. Cantu's 14-year prohibition. What age do you think is proper for kids to play tackle football, youngest?
That's a great question. I think a lot of that, to Maria's point, is educating the parents to make decisions that's in the best interest of their family.
For your kids, how old would it be?
You know what? My youngest started playing football when he was in 3rd grade, and
age 8?
We had a good experience.
All right, and
yes.
I know you believe it's brought a lot to him, and I'm sure he's doing well. Patrick Ruby, Maria Bailey, Peter, Karen, thank you all very much for joining us today outside.